Hey friends, David Fauché coming at you. Well, I'm so excited to be bringing you the relaunch of my new guitar channel. It's going to be the Worship Skills and Drills channel. So I've been preparing for this and basically finding there's a niche out there that hasn't been covered by the musical lesson subscription services and free services out there on YouTube. So before I get too much further into this episode, let's take a prayer real quick. This will be Psalms 33:3. Sing to him a new song, play skillfully, and shout for joy. So what that's saying is, let's get excited about worshiping. Let's sing. Let's work on our skills. This lesson is more of a supplementary lesson for those who probably already have a guitar and have probably already started learning. If you haven't started learning the fundamentals of guitar in any genre, I'm comfortable with blues, rock and roll, and of course Christian contemporary music, CCM, commonly referred to as worship guitar, worship music. So those genres I'm comfortable with, and the skills I will teach you will apply to all of those easily. All right, so as far as the content of my course, my plans forward in the skills and drills department, I'm going to be bringing you some pre-recorded sessions that will be in a certain key. We'll be able to shift keys. That way you'll be able to feel the pressure of what it takes to be able to perform in a worship context. That way you'll be able to think on your feet. As the worship leader hears a song in, let's say, F sharp, for instance, and it just doesn't sound right, if he wants to change it into F, maybe to fit the vocalist better, or just the brightness might need adjusting, any kind of key change like that, well, it can be difficult for the untrained to be able to do that. The rhythm section, maybe not quite as hard as the melodic electric guitar one part, your so-called lead parts, but we got to start somewhere, so that's what today's lesson is going to do. But anyway, the drills that are going to be coming out are going to put like the pressure on you and train you, just like if you were going to if you wanted to get better on riding a bike, like how fast and your endurance, you might go to a spin class and play it to music and then have an instructor. So it'd be kind of a Peloton type format. Back to today's lessons. Today I prepared a handy Capo chart to help you standardize your progressions. So what I mean by that, you'll see that a lot of the progressions in this space, and even in blues and rock and roll, they'll hit a lot of the 1 and the 4 and the 5 chords. Then they'll sprinkle in maybe a 3 or a 6 or a 2, which are the minor portions of the major scale. So you'll find that there'll be certain voicings, like the way a chord sounds. For instance, if you play a C chord, well, it's kind of based on a 3 instead of a 5 as the secondary note. So sometimes that voicing is much better, and you'll want to standardize and use that C shape or that C progression more often. So that's why we want to standardize. And also, me being from a business background, if we can standardize our processes and simplify things, that'll make it easier for us to bring more people in and teach them. And also just to keep it simple for us as we perform. There's new songs coming out every week. We have different talent levels, and we have to be flexible. That's why we need all the tools in the toolbox that we can get. All right, so now to today's lesson. We're going to be looking at a chart here in a moment. We'll look at the chart. I've given you some of the advantages, and as I go through this, I'll give you some of the things to be aware of. I'll just go ahead and say one thing to be aware of is getting boxed in. That means if you learn to play a song in C, but you bottom out in that example, then you won't have anywhere to go. So in that case, you'll have to either just hope you can figure out on the spot, which is never really a good plan, or in that case, like if you had to play the Father's House, and you know that somebody has a deeper voice who's going to sing that, then you probably want to learn that in 2 different progressions, especially if, like in today's world, you only get 1 rehearsal, which I don't see how people do that, but there's people so good out there they can get by with 1 rehearsal and perform in an hour later. All right. The other thing I'm going to talk about is if you play anything in drop D, that means turning your bass string down like this into another note. That if you do that, you have to remember to put it back the way you found it. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the chart. All right, so on the chart, as we read it from left to right, first we have play as in G, and I would say playing it as in G is the more like I've seen the majority of songs. You know, I've learned or studied at least 50 CCM, Christian contemporary music songs, and most of them are played like they're in G. It just really seems like. I'm just finding a lot of my favorite songs are played like that. So with the G shape like this, and the 4 would be a C shape, and the 5 would either be your kind of regular, or then you have the alternate right there. So 1, 4, 5, like that. So with the capo, we can, as you can see here, if we're playing in G, we can easily get up to a G sharp. We can get up to an A just by moving it up 1. There's an A right there. And we can keep working it up. I kind of, for playing in G, I kind of stop on the 4th fret, like that. And then that gives me a B. That'll have the dot, it's the one with the 3rd dot on the neck from the headstock. Alright, so that's usually, if I'm, you know, if plan A is usually stopping on cape 4, like I say, if you need to go up to a C, you can do that. Like here, if you're really, you know, you don't want to change progressions, you know, you can do that. But just keep in mind, every time you move up, you start taking away some of the notes that you could be hitting on. So that's one reason why I don't want you to get too high up toward the body here. So the first example we're going to go over is The Blessing by Carrie Job. Now this one is released in the key of B, so we got a cape 4 playing it like it's in G, like that, which is fine for the most of the song. But we'll see if you want to replicate what Carrie did in the bridge. She has a super high voice, you know, and as it builds up, she goes way up there where most mortal vocalists aren't going to be able to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to lower this down into the key of A, so that'll be now cape 2, like this, like that, and we should have more success in singing it. So we'll give that a shot. Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you and gracious to you. Lord turn His face toward you, give you peace. Like that. Okay, so the next example, we're going to move over to playing things in C. That's the next one on our chart. What I'm going to show you there is The Father's House by Corey Asbury. So this one is released in D flat, which is C sharp. So we'll just go with the standard release. I think his vocal range is more reachable for most people, for most male vocalists. So let's give that a shot. So D flat, we're going to go capo 1, and then the 1 chord is going to be like it's in C, but since we've raised it a half step, it's in D flat. All right, so let's give this a shot. Sometimes I'm studying, I just want to make mistakes. It looks to me like weakness, I canvas for your shame. And my story isn't over, my story's just begun. And I pray you want to find me, that's what my father does. And I pray you want to find me, that's what my father does. So you get the idea there. We can easily lower it down to the key of C, a half step, or we can raise it up if you had a female. But if you needed to go lower than the key of C, then you would have to change your progression shape and then do another plan, maybe like playing it in G. Okay, so that takes care of playing in C. Next, we're going to go playing like it's in D. So the example I have there is Holy Water. Originally, Holy Water is released in the key of D. I'm going to raise it up for my example to D sharp, so that'll be cape 1. And I've got to put it in drop D now, so I'm going to lower my D, my low E string a whole step down. That way, that way. Alright, so now when I hit a D, it's going to have a much fuller, distinct sound like that. Alright, so let's give Holy Water a shot. Get my bearings here. D, C, G are the shapes. So since I'm in drop D, my G is no longer going to be like that, but I have to bump it up like that. So that's the thing with drop D tuning. You've got to remember, if you dropped it a full step, you've got to compensate if you're using that bottom E string. Alright, so the chords will be like this. D, and then sort of a D over C, and then into the G shape. So there's your Holy Water. Again, and I'm please again, I need you. Oh, I need you. Walking down this desert road, waterfall, my thirsting soul, I need you. Oh, I need you. Like that. Okay, so now after you play, a song in drop D, you would have to remember to go ahead and bump your tuning on up like that. Okay. Well, those are examples. On the chart, I also have how to play an E, and then sometimes you may want to play an A too, which I don't have on this chart. But I think the bigger examples are playing in G, C, and D, where you might have the drop D option and give you that fuller sound. You don't have to play D key songs in drop D. And like I say, there is some downside, that being there's so many more things for you to think about when you're on stage that it may not be worth the extra sound effect. Maybe you would do it for a recording, but not necessarily a worship set, just because unless you've been doing this forever and you know all the tricks in the book and you're perfect, you might not want to add any complexity to what you're doing. All right, so to wrap up, we talked about the advantages of using a capo. We can standardize our technique. We can accommodate key changes quickly in a worship setting. And we can go for those chord voicings that we really want. Like if we like the way a C chord sounds, instead of having that second note in the chord be a 5, it could be a 3, which is usually, I think it's better. We get our chord voicings we want. We'll have flexibility and be able to keep up with the worship leader. And when we do this, we don't want to get boxed in and be, we still have to be prepared for getting out of the box that we're in. So that would be an alternate progression. Make sure that you put things back to normal if you change your drop D. And then you also may want to check your tuning a little bit more. Sometimes some guitars will be a little finicky. If you take a capo off, the tuning could, need to be adjusted again. So yeah, that's how that's one way you can get along in a worship band easier, still be flexible, and still be skillful, like Psalms 33:3 wants us to be. Well, God bless you for joining. Please take a moment and subscribe and share if you can, and I'll be cranking out more drills for you in the near future. Bye.